Welcome. My name is Greg Alexander. I am the CEO of SBI, a sales and marketing consulting firm committed to helping you make your number. You are watching SBI TV. This is a monthly web TV show featuring guests just like you, executives trying to grow their revenues. By tuning in each month, you can peek behind the scenes and watch your peers discuss their strategies for making their numbers. Today we have a great show planned for you. We have assembled an expert panel, and we're going to answer your questions. Each month we collect questions submitted to our various media properties, things such as the SBI blog, podcast, magazine, and TV show, and we ask a panel of experts to answer them for you. So let's meet this month's panel. Joining me today is Todd Cione. Todd is the Chief Revenue Officer of Rackspace, which is a $1.8 billion provider of cloud computing services with 6,000 employees, who has become the #1 provider of managed cloud services. He oversees Rackspace's marketing and communications globally, as well as a direct and indirect sales channel for the Americas. Next up is Mark Ellis. Mark is the Senior Vice President of Sales at Time Inc., one of the world's leading media companies with a global print audience of 120 million and a digital audience of 120 million unique visitors per month across 90 websites. Mark's company owns iconic brands such as Sports Illustrated, People Magazine, and my personal all-time favorite, Fortune Magazine. Next up is Tony Capicilli. Tony is the Chief Sales Officer for Heartland Payment Systems, who is responsible for the sales organization's strategy and development. Reporting directly to the CEO, Tony fosters close working relationships with internal and external stakeholders to ensure the sales organization's efficient operation and success. Heartland Payment Systems is a Fortune 1000 company and one of the largest payment processors in the United States. And it does roughly $2 billion in annual sales, employs almost 4,000 people, 1,300 of which are salespeople. Along with the three of you with me today, I am joined by two veterans of SBI. John Staples, to my far right, is a partner at SBI, and he is an expert at creating performance conditions that allow sales teams to win. John's clients include some of the world's top companies such as Phillips 66, Motorola, and Ericsson, just to name a few. Prior to joining SBI, John spent 25 years in executive leadership positions in the B2B space. Next, we have Dan Perry. Dan is a principal at SBI and is an expert in the area of talent management, which is the sourcing, interviewing, selecting, onboarding, and developing of sales and marketing talent. He's also the single best talent assessor I have ever seen. He can find a needle in the haystack, so to speak. So today's show is a debate. We're going to answer your questions and get two opposing views. The first view on this side of the virtual table here is the guys in the seat. What do I mean by that? The people that are actually in the role of head of sales. They have a point of view from that seat that's related to making their number every month, every quarter, and every year. They deal with this from their focused view. They are leading 3 very large sales organizations, and their point of view is specific to their customers, the products they sell, and the markets they compete in. And there's a lot of value to that. There's no theory, so to speak. John and Dan come at it from a very different point of view. They come at it from a higher altitude. They hear your questions in multiple industries, at multiple companies, and this helps them provide context that we might hear from Todd, Mark, and Tony. The goal is to give you, our viewing audience, answers to your questions that are balanced. Think of it as the perfect balance of street smarts and book smarts. Okay, let's get started. All right, you guys ready?
Let's go.
All right. So our first question comes from Mike in San Francisco. And Mike asks, the new year just started, and I got a huge number to hit. How do I get the rest of the organization to support sales? So let's start with Todd. Todd, what advice would you give Mike from San Francisco?
Yeah, I'd tell Mike 2 things. So first of all, ensuring that your peers on the leadership team understand everything that you need to hit the number. If you don't hit the number, the company doesn't do well. If the company doesn't do well, other functions aren't going to do well as well. Second thing I'd say, after working with your peers, is having the CEO's commitment to get other people on board to help you hit the number.
Good advice. John, let me come over to you. What advice would you offer Mike in San Francisco?
Well, I would say maybe a little bit more context to Todd's comment, which would first be, if you're starting off the year, you should already have had corporate alignment with strategy, corporate strategy, product strategy, marketing strategy, sales strategy. So the alignment should have happened prior to getting off at the beginning of the year. But let's try to help him out a little bit with a little bit more tactical advice. I would say numbers are typically made by the big deals in a lot of companies. So there's probably a handful of deals in every company that either make or break the number. And I would say implementing a big deal desk automatically takes the big deal, sticks it in the center of the table, and everybody that's going to make that deal happen sits around that table and forces everybody to work together in order to get those deals across the goal line. And I guess one other tactical piece of advice, I would say I'd put them through more of a racy exercise, which will allow people to understand who's responsible, who's accountable, consulted and informed on every aspect of the sales process, and put some structure around their go-to-market approach.
That's good advice. So role clarity.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. All right. Tony, you have had your fair share of big numbers to hit. So something tells me you've been in Mike's shoes before. So what advice would you give Mike?
So first of all, I like what you said earlier, getting alignment with the business departments. Although it would be nice, like you said, to plan in the fall, I'm sure Mike is actually asking us in January. Yeah. Maybe not be able to plan as well. And so I think you have to get your shop really clean, because implied in that question is maybe the product group or the marketing group isn't quite where they need to be, right?
Yeah, it is
implied. And that's oftentimes the deal. We think, oh, let's look at the other departments, look at what they're doing that could help us. But if we get our shop in order and then go sit down with those partners and develop those relationships and say, look, this is what we're trying to accomplish, to ensure we have that corporate alignment, even in January, in February, whatever that might be, kind of continually looking at ourselves first as a sales organization, get a really clean shop. I think that can foster a stronger relationship across the table.
Yep. You know, you subscribe to no victims.
Yeah, you have to, right?
What you just told Mike is get his act together before he goes and starts pointing the finger.
Just start with yourself.
Yeah, very good. Yeah. All right, let's jump to our second question. So this question comes from Robert in Raleigh, Durham. Robert asks, we are rolling out a new set of sales programs at Sales Kickoff. So how do I prevent the sales team from blowing them off? And forgive my slang, but this is a quote. So Mark, you work out in New York City, and New Yorkers don't let anybody blow anything off. So what advice would you give Robert from Raleigh, Durham?
It's a great question. I mean, you got to prioritize everything, right? I think you can use, comp in some cases to push certain programs, but I think it's really more about getting the right level of support. If you've got the product experts or the program experts that can help segment the audience, find target customers and provide the right collateral material, I think that's really where you win that way. I think a salesperson will sell what's easiest, right? And they'll sell the products that they're going to get the most support around.
So make it easy for them.
Completely.
Yeah, interesting. Dan, let me come to you. So in your practice, one of the things that you do, one of the many, is you get B players to produce like A players, which oftentimes makes sure that they're adopting whatever these new sales initiatives are. So what advice would you offer Robert?
Well, I tell Robert that he's got to get his sales managers coaching. So coaching is the key to productivity and really the biggest impact you can have. Now, to get coaching, your program's got to be part of a process. So you don't have a standard process in place. It's hard to coach to that process. And then you got to measure that. What measurement am I going to really focus on? Because measurement you measure it, you can manage it, right? So really tie the programs into a process, coach to that process as well, frontline sales manager, and then measure it, through accountability. And then if you wanted to, you can tie compensation to it, right? In that order. And what we find is that the coaching breaks down because there's no process in place, nor is there any time to coach. So sales managers are too busy to coach, and so they don't coach, and those programs fall on the wayside.
So let me ask you this. So this is in the context of Sales Kickoff, right? So do you wait to Sales Kickoff to bring the frontline sales managers on board, or do you kind of have a soft kickoff with them first so that when you hit Sales Kickoff, the sales management team is coaching, as you said?
You bring them on board first. The reason why, the sales rep's going to walk out of the room, go to his boss and say, do you really have to do this? And if the boss has to be on board with that program for it to be reinforced.
Yeah, okay, cool.
And you want all that to be flushed out before the sales kickoff meeting.
Yeah, very interesting. Todd, let me come to you. I've been in your sales meetings, and I've seen how you roll things out, and I think you do a really good job at it. So what advice would you offer, Robert, as it relates to this question?
Yeah, two things come to mind. Number one is whatever programs you're rolling out need to help the rep be successful. Yeah. Anything that helps a rep be successful, is going to drive adoption. That has to be crafted with that end goal in mind. And I also agree that frontline sales manager is the key ingredient to replicating that program over and over and over to get adoption. I mean, the other side is, maybe more of a stick approach as well. There's an employment continuation program that, there's some things you're going to roll out that are part of the job, and you're just going to have to, map into what you do every day. Yeah. And there's sometimes you just have to go with a directive approach as well.
I was going to say, Todd, you mentioned frontline sales manager is important. It depends on the size of the organization, but it's the director level as well, too. Mm-hmm. Because you guys can implement the program with your manager, but if the director doesn't want to do it, people do what their boss tells them to do. Mm. And if that doesn't work, then you get to break down there.
I think they can see through, too, if it's not something good for them. And so often you come out with a corporate initiative that they might be able to contextualize. You got to get the top line leadership involved and then the front line level so everyone's on the same page. And while there's a really nicely architected process you gave, kind of talking about the dichotomy between real life and academic life, that doesn't always work out exactly. But you can overcome that if you have your leadership in lockstep with the right priority. Like, this is something we're going to do, and this is clearly why. All of a sudden, that can trump a breakdown in coaching in Maryland, where you have a little bit of an issue because it's beneficial to the whole group. Although that's a beautiful way to do it, I'm just thinking that if you get the leadership on board and it's good for the actual salesperson, you'll be able to really make some.
Shouldn't a lot of this stuff be in response to what salespeople are looking for and what their customers are looking for too? I mean, to your point, making it easier for them to sell, there should be input early on before these programs roll out.
Shouldn't surprise them.
Exactly.
So they're involved in the creation of the programs.
Yeah.
So I would say, we've talked about sales kickoff, and what have you guys done in your businesses to have had the kickoff event, it got everybody excited, everybody's storming the door, they're going out to get the number. How have you maintained that learnings that you provided during the SKO?
First off, do you guys all do sales kickoff events? Yeah. To kick off the new year? Is that a ritual, or is it sometimes, maybe not sometimes?
It's spotty for us. I mean, occasionally we'll do the annual kind of kickoff meeting. It'll usually be in February or March, so we miss the kickoff of the year anyway. But
that's where we're at.
Or if there's a big product initiative coming out, it's just a kind of a focused effort around that, not as big of a deal.
Okay.
We're driving through some transformation, so we've used the kickoff as one of several milestones to try to drive and implement change, but it's just one. Yeah. And we have programs that go on, evergreen post-kickoff, that include coaching, that include measurement, that include incentives, that also include creating champions and heroes out of people that are doing the things that you want them to do.
That's really good. If you don't do that, you might as well not do the kickoff. Yeah. Because you're wasting your time.
So A players, if we're talking A, B, and C player talent structure, A players love it, C players hate it. Yeah. Because it exposes them, right, and all their flaws. So that's what a kickoff meeting can also do, is you look through that and try to get more value out of a kickoff meeting.
All right, those are some great answers, guys. This issue that our panel just addressed for Robert is discussed in depth by Brad Merkovich in the latest edition of the SBI magazine. Brad is an amazing guy. He led sales for Concur Technologies from $130 million in 2008 to $700 million in 2014, which resulted in the company get bought by SAP for $8 billion. How about those for numbers? So if you want to read Brad's article and the other excellent stories, go to salesbenchmarkindex.com/the SBI magazine and sign up for a free subscription. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to ask our panel to discuss how to generate enough sales opportunities to make the number. So stick around and come right back.
This is not a table. It is a stage where your performance is measured in numbers. If you reach them, you get an encore. If you don't, it could be curtains. That's why you need the well-rehearsed, proven sales and marketing strategies of SBI.
Welcome back, everyone. I'm Greg Alexander, CEO of SBI, and you are watching SBI TV. Today, we have assembled an expert panel to answer the questions you have submitted to SBI. So let's get back to the questions. All right, this question comes from Steve in our nation's capital, Washington, D.C. And Steve asks, and this is a quote, "Marketing's leads stink. How do I get my sales team to generate their own opportunities?" So, Tony, I'm going to start with you. You have 1,300 salespeople, and as I understand it, they generate virtually all of their opportunities themselves, correct?
Yeah.
How do they do it?
So that would be a good problem if some of the leads weren't that good. But no, in reality, our marketing department is really starting to grow significantly. But because of that, over the past 18 years, we've instilled a responsibility or ultimate responsibility to the rep to source their own leads. And so they come in, we have that hunter mentality. And I think even regardless, when our marketing department, which is growing extremely fast and really becoming a strong partner, we're going to keep that in the DNA of the salesperson. Like, you're ultimately responsible for every deal you have. And I think that shapes their opinion, whether it's a lead coming across and knowing that it's not all give me's, they can go out and create their own destiny. So that's really what we focused on.
Interesting. John, let me come to you. So in the intro, I made the audience aware of what your expertise is, which is standing up repeatable processes. And one of those repeatable processes is prospecting, rep-level prospecting. So share with the panel and with the audience here a little bit about that process.
Okay, I'd break it down in two probably core components that we follow, or I follow, when it comes to generating leads. And the first would be referral generation. You know, referrals, if any of you guys drive heavy referral, and I think, Tony, in your business, you're a heavy referral type of business, referrals tend to close at a much higher rate than, kind of going out and trying to look for a new logo. So anytime you can drive a referral process into the company and drive those leads into the sales team, those are going to close at a higher rate, sometimes upwards of 50% higher. The other approach that I would recommend is leveraging a social outlet or social channel. And for us in the larger companies or B2B businesses, it tends to be LinkedIn is one of the best used tools out there. And I'd recommend that any sales rep out there start with, number one, do they have a good profile? Does that profile represent them as a personal brand? And a lot of people think it's still the old resume type of repository, but it's not. It's a personal branding location for them. And when we all want to know whether we're going to take that meeting with a sales rep, the first thing we do is we Google them. What pops up? Typically a LinkedIn. I go to LinkedIn, I look at the history, and then I want to know whether I'm going to waste my time with that person or it's worth spending an hour with them. The second component of that would be around reach. You know, if you look at your own personal networks, if you're attached to 57 soccer moms and kids and so on, it's not a high quality network. So we recommend folks look at their network and then tag them based on the personas that buy their solutions. So tagging them. And tagging allows them to be more efficient if they're going to use LinkedIn as a marketing channel. So I don't want to send something to say a VP of sales that's really meant for the CMO. I want to make sure that I tag my personas accordingly. And then the last component of LinkedIn, which I think is extremely powerful, and that is the referral generation. So if I'm connected to all of you folks, but I know that you know someone that I'd like to meet, and assuming that I have earned the right, because I'm trying to drive business, and if we've done business together, then hopefully I've earned the right by providing great services or great products to you. And then when I ask you to introduce me to someone that I'd like to meet that you know, there's a tendency, if I've earned that right, that you'll introduce me. And then it goes back into a referral bucket, and I'm looking for the highest return on my selling time. Yeah. So referral generation via two different channels.
Yeah, very cool. It's offline and online referral generation.
100%.
Mark, I'm going to come to you. What I'd like you to do, you're doing business with pretty much everybody you want to do business with, so it's all about generating more business inside of the existing base. Right. But some of these companies are huge, so you still have to generate your own opportunities. You just do it within your account. So how is the approach different in that environment?
Yeah, you know, it's different. It's also similar. I mean, you still want to have a profile out there because you're still going to get checked out by companies that you're doing business with, right? So I think we're starting to employ a lot of the social kind of referral and social profiling, techniques that you're talking about. I think it's you've got to have process in your day if you're a seller, and you've got to break out the time to work on business that's super speculative, business that's you've got to generate from scratch, and current customers, and the really good ones do that. Mm-hmm. There's a time during a week or a time during a day where I'm going to do nothing but cold call now, and reach out to those people, whether they're new customers or they're customers inside of a larger company, to kind of spread through. So I think we're doing both. We're doing social outreach now, but we're also trying to get get processes in place to allow people to actually prospect.
Do you do any old school offline referral generation? Just old school networking, or is it all moved online now?
No. There's an element of it. But we attend events. We throw events ourselves. We try to network where we know our customers are going to be, for sure.
And it still works?
Yeah. Some of us still go sit on porches and wait for the people to walk out of their building. There is still a lot of that happens, absolutely.
But what about cold calling? You know, pick the phone up, dial the numbers. Did your reps ever do that anymore?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to mention it happens, but I mean, there's diminishing return. There's dramatically diminishing return in cold calling. One of the other channels for demand generation is a partner channel. And I just wanted to, the question that came in, I think thinking about direct referrals from your base, social networking, prospecting, but also using third parties that influence the buyer you're trying to get to, I think is really, really important in building an overall ecosystem in a territory.
Yeah, that's a great point. And sometimes your channel partners or partners in general are the best referral sources themselves, right?
Agree.
And I do think we do a lot of networking to drive business, we do a lot of cold calling or events still. I mean, there's that theory shift to social selling is it, and there's a reality that there's a lot of business coming in other ways. The one other thing I would say to that question, to really get at the heart of it, we addressed how to overcome it as a symptom from a sales leader, generate leads, right? But you need to go back to your marketing partner. You need to go back to the sales strategy that flows in, product strategy into the marketing department, because maybe they don't know that they're not good, right? And so as a sales leader, you got to get back in the game with that senior suite to ensure we're all actually solving the problem, not just taking care of a symptom.
Right. So the opening of that question was, my leads coming from marketing stink. So you're addressing that by saying, hey, before you just walk away from the marketing leader, go sit down with him or her and say,
do your job and you get in there.
Do your job.
Yeah. Right?
And I'm sure the marketing leader says the close rates of the sales team stink.
Sure, and we had partners right there.
Was the word stink, or did you actually revise that?
I think the word is stink. Yeah, I really do. So
You didn't even,
and that's the debate between sales and marketing, which will go on forever. So let me, in the spirit of time, let me move on. All right, our next question comes from Jason in Austin, Texas. Greg, my company is brutally difficult to do business with. At times, the internal sale is harder than the external sale. Legal review, credit check, engineering specs all take way too long to complete. How can I make my company easier to do business with? So Todd, let me start with you, because in your business, if you're tough to do business with, I mean, literally your customer can just leave your website, go on somebody else's website and buy. So any delay there, any friction, and any negative customer experience is deadly. So I'm imagining that you guys have streamlined all of these kind of sales support functions. So share with Jason from Austin a little bit about that.
Well, it's certainly a work in progress. We've done a lot of work, but it still continues. Look, I think you have to prioritize, because there's probably a long list of areas you get headwind on getting things done internally. But what we did was we looked at the list of issues, prioritized where we could have the biggest impact, and then also with the least amount of effort to make change. And where those two things overlap, we made some quick progress. Things like contract administration and working with legal. Our sales team had never really had a formal legal training before, so we quickly built one, and our contract processing time dropped really, really fast.
And did that show up in shorter sales cycles, higher close rates?
It did show up in shorter sales cycles. Yeah. And actually the velocity of deals getting done previously, they were stalling when you got to the negotiation phase, and we saw a lot of velocity through that subsequently.
Yeah. Dan, let me come to you. So you're known for stacking an org chart full of A players. Nothing gets an A player to quit faster than this kind of stuff. So what advice would you offer our friend in Austin?
Yeah, A players know the value of selling time versus non-selling time, right? And then this is all non-selling time. So I take it two angles. Number one, the first angle is that if I'm just an individual sales manager or sales rep, I've got to find time to create and overcome those inefficient processes. And that's really by finding how stuff gets done. And that's building an internal ally inside of an organization to push my stuff through. And that's that political monster they call of trying to build internal advocates. However, that's really not the way to solve it, right? The real, as Todd, you mentioned, is prioritizing from a sales leader perspective and the functional business leader as well, too, to get those two together. For instance, legal, contract you mentioned, Todd, the chief legal officer might not want to fix it, might think it's just fine the way it is. And so unless you as a sales leader can get with the legal, the chief legal counsel, it's not going to get fixed. Yeah. Right? So that's a higher perspective. But if I'm just a rep struggling every day, internal allies, it's the only way I can do it.
Yes, and that's what he talks about. The internal sale is harder than the external sale. Right. Tony, let me come to you. So your reps very often are engaged in point of contact selling. So what do I mean by that? So they meet a merchant and it's a shorter sales cycle and they're trying to close on the spot. Right. So if anything gets in the way at that moment in truth, maybe they don't get the business. So how have you eliminated some of these obstacles?
Yeah, to your point, we prioritized the biggest obstacles and started systematically taking them out. And you almost can't go get the A players until you get that solved. So we saw our rep average once we started focusing on those key boarding, underwriting, legal issues so that we can create a seamless transition on site. And to this point, you can actually board within seconds on application because we have that short sales cycle. That took years to get to, but we increased productivity over 200% per rep from the initial process to where now it's not all of that, right? But it has a lot to do with it. And you move people into better selling time. They're not waiting for the underwriters. They're not waiting. So that connectivity, we built a CRM around the onboarding process. That was actually the primary thing, not the pipeline management, but how can we make this easy to do business? Like that's the primary objective. And I think that really made a big difference.
You going to say something?
Well, customer feedback I think is really important too, to get a disciplined way to get that in the door, to merchandise that around your company, to say, listen, this is what we're hearing day to day. This is why we're not getting the business. And I think while it's a big part of all of our jobs as sales leaders is removing obstacles, sometimes you have to create that kind of a SWAT team inside the building that the CEO and the CFO kind of bless, and your job is to process bust. Because it's not something you can fix once. I think it's kind of a continuous thing, and I've had success in the past where we've actually had a small team of people. It's just like, find a problem, go get it fixed. Fix it again if you need to.
You know, it's got to do with trust too, right? A lot of these processes are built because they don't trust the organization. So I got to double check my forecast because I don't trust that salespeople are entering in the right sales stage. The legal counsel doesn't trust the negotiation ability of the salesperson. The pricing person doesn't trust.
That one drives me crazy.
Right.
They set these discount approval levels, which are ridiculous. I mean, way above market rate, just so that they can get their eyes on a deal. Hey, I need to go to a 20% discount versus a 10% discount, and that triggers, financials review, which just slows things down, and it's a trust issue. Yeah.
Well, I would say that clients that have done this well and really squeezed all the juice out of the process that they can typically start with a quote to cash or a quote to revenue analyses or Six Sigma type projects. So you mentioned a team of people that work on it. I mean, those folks are taken out of the business, look at the entire process end to end, and then look where they can re-engineer or thin down the process, and a RACI is always part of that as well. So those that do well, we've found that do that.
So let me ask you three guys a question. So we're talking about selling time versus non-selling time, or another way to phrase that is productive versus unproductive time. So be honest with us, with our thousands of watchers. How optimized are you? Do you have unproductive time?
Of course.
Yeah, of course.
try to minimize it.
Mastered the whole thing.
I'd love to see your Outlook calendar.
Right.
That'd be
You see
outstanding.
my time studies. I'm not.
I do have my administrator is awesome and helps me a ton. And she, on a monthly basis, we have a category system on my calendar, and she, on a monthly basis, sends me my allotment of time. So I do see my goal versus actual every 30 days. And it's always interesting to see that.
It is interesting. We're a consulting organization, so we track time utilization like crazy. I mean, that's a fundamental metric of our business, right? And I'm always disappointed in myself all the time. I look at it, I'm like, where did that time go? I spent 10 hours on that? How could that be? 10 hours is a long time.
That you'll never get back.
You'll never get back, That's right. So I'm going to make a suggestion to the audience, and that is you can turn your unproductive time, such as commuting, working out, standing in line, into productive time by listening to the SBI podcast. Did you like how I did that? That's pretty good, huh?
Nice.
Every week we interview a top executive and have him or her share how they are making their numbers. Simply go to salesbenchmarkindex.com/SBI podcast and subscribe to our iTunes channel. Turn this little device known as a smartphone into your secret weapon and load it up with all the SBI best practices. Okay, we're going to take a quick break, 30 seconds, I promise. And when we come back, we're going to have this panel discuss how to squeeze more revenue out of your channel partners. You won't want to miss that, so come right back.
Your finish line is your number, and the only way to reach it is to make certain everyone is pulling their weight and headed in the same direction. That's why SBI uses proven techniques to bring everyone on your team on board with successful, standardized sales programs. enabling victory at the turn of every quarter.
Welcome back, everyone. I am Greg Alexander, CEO of SBI, and you're watching SBI TV. Today, we have assembled an expert panel to answer your questions that you've submitted to SBI. So let's get back to your questions. All right, guys. Ron from Atlanta submitted this question to my Twitter account, and my admin actually caught it for me. Can't say that I check that as often as I probably should. All right, here is the quote/question. My sales ops guy is a glorified Excel monkey and has not produced an accurate forecast in 3 quarters. How do I get sales ops to get me an accurate forecast? Mark, I'm going to come to you because you have business ops as opposed to sales ops, which I think is unique. And your relationship with finance is tight as a result of that. So how do you guys produce forecasts and how accurate are they?
You know, we've gone to doing it quarterly is one of the things, just because the business becomes so dynamic, the media business that I'm in. So I think, we've got to co-opt the business ops or finance people or sales ops, as you call it, as partners. I mean, they've got to have skin in the game as well. So they're at the table with us, normally up front. They're at the table with us when we do the reconciliation at the end of a quarter or the end of a period. So
interesting. Now, you, Todd, probably think a quarterly forecast, oh my God, right? That's long. In his business, it's actually fast. But you guys do monthly forecasts, correct?
Yeah, the business has been built on the SMB and mid-market segment, so the deal cycle requires a monthly cadence, absolutely. And look, at the end of the day, I feel accountable to being accurate with the forecast.
Right.
The sales ops team is my partner in administering that forecast and getting, but I'm accountable.
So you're not delegating it?
So they help me, but I'm the guy that makes
on the hook for it.
I'm on the hook for it.
So you spend your time on it?
I do.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Tony, how about you?
That's the right answer. And I think that if the sales ops person is viewed like that, you should find another sales ops person, because that's one of the most valuable positions, and they are a partner. And ultimately, I'm accountable for the number, but they help a strong relationship with finance, and they really help you dial into an accurate forecast and help you learn the key assumptions you thought you've had in tracking your KPIs. So I lean on them heavily, got dialed in process through that partnership that you go develop with the finance team. But I definitely think that is a key position in my mind. And if you don't have a person you can count on, look at yourself or look at them, but solve that problem.
Yeah. John, you work with a lot of sales ops leaders. In fact, some of them, I would argue, would be best-in-class sales ops leaders. And the people that you've had the opportunity to work with sound more like what Tony just described, which are real thought partners or right hands of the heads of sales. So from that perspective, watching those folks do their job, I mean, what have you seen in the way of a forecasting process that has worked well?
So I'm going to probably take it down to the ground level here and say, in order to forecast accurately, you need to have a good sales process. So if you start with we call it a buyer-centric or buyer-driven sales process, I'm aligned with the buyer. Let's assume that's the case. But I think that what people often miss is the buyer-driven exit criteria from each of the phases of the sales process. So that means, as a sales rep, I can't go in and have a cup of coffee with you guys and come out of that meeting and go, great meeting, great coffee. It's 20%, now 75% probability. The customer or the buyer has to do something that allows me to move into the next phase. So how does this relate back to forecast accuracy? Well, if I'm able to measure each of the days in stage and I have a client or customer driven exit criteria, then I know that the likelihood of being in that stage is more accurate than not. And it allows the sales ops, so no question, you have to have a superstar sales ops person in that role, but they also have to have a solid sales process, buyer-driven exit criteria to allow them to have better forecast accuracy when they give you the numbers at the end of the day. So that would be my number one.
Let me ask you.
Yeah.
So very often, the sales leader doesn't have an A player in the sales ops role, as we just heard from our audience member. So why do sales leaders keep hiring the wrong sales ops person?
It's usually someone that has not succeeded in sales, that's a salesperson, and they move him into sales ops because he's a good guy. right? And
That happens.
And what happens then is that they move into a role and they're really not equipped. They don't have the competencies nor really the experience to be successful and meet that profile of that job. That's really the key there.
Which is interesting because in my view, the level of difficulty is higher in the sales ops role it is in the sales reps role, and the contribution to the business, because they're going across the entire sales organization, is higher as well. So what advice do you give our audience on making sure they hire the right sales ops leader?
Spec the job right. Get the right profile. That's really the key, right? And in sales ops, as John put it, sales operations and really now enablement has taken on even more of a chief of staff role, where we see it's the chief of staff to the chief sales officer. And profiling that, which is a job description, competencies, and accountabilities are important to nail in that role. That's really the key.
And the job's been around long enough now where, we don't have to invent these competencies. There's actually a spec, right, that we can distinguish between A, B, and C player on. Yeah.
But it's really evolved, as you said. I mean, sales enablement's kind of a new thing, and chief of staff role is kind of a new thing as well. It's grown.
I got a quick question I want to ask the guys. Do you think that a sales rep, in general, a sales rep, is responsible for both pipeline and forecasting, or just the sales manager is responsible just for forecasting and the sales rep leads just the pipeline?
So distinguish between forecast and pipeline.
Right, so pipeline is what's in your pipeline as a sales rep as you advance it through hitting exit criteria. A forecast is typically best case or commit or upside, as sometimes people call it, to the quarterly number.
So the pipeline would be out quarter.
Yes.
And the forecast or the commit is in quarter. Is that another way to say it?
Better side,
Yeah. So the question is what again?
Yeah, is the sales rep responsible for that or just the sales manager on the forecast?
In my world, they're responsible for both. Pipeline for sure. Forecast, I think that's the starting point, and I think you've got to put the sales manager filter over the top of that. Yep. That's kind of how I would view it.
Yeah, if one of the criteria of a successful seller is having control of a deal.
Right.
That also has to do with when a deal's coming in. So I think that's intra-quarter answer. The other, I think, hallmark of a successful seller is consistency, which has to do with thinking out a quarter, 2 quarters, and building pipeline via prospecting. So my view would be both.
Interesting.
Yeah, I'm with them. I think that I hold my managers to the forecast number for sure, and the more mature sales reps become incredibly accountable to the forecast as well because of what you're saying. They've matured their processes. They're thinking out quarter, annual in a different way. And I think that's where you ultimately want to land. It's
a debatable question. It eats up a lot of selling versus non-selling time, right, and sales reps. So that's why I asked. I'm curious to find out. Thanks, guys.
All right, let's handle one more, okay? So we have Sean from Richmond, Virginia. And Sean asks, I'm getting tired of all this hype around social selling. I think it's a bunch of crap. Is this just the latest fad, or will it really help me make my number? So Tony, you and I have spoken about this over the years, and there was a time where you felt it wasn't great, and I'm wondering if you still feel that way. Are you a believer now, or do you still think it's overhyped?
Yeah, I think it depends on the market we're going after. In our short sales cycle, Mexican restaurant that's not online, that we're doing a lot of business with.
That's not going to work.
So you really got to understand it. I think sometimes you can overhype it when you're not applying it to a particular context. So you can't just take every tool that you guys have and say, or that the market says, this is good for you, and say, okay, I'll apply it to this particular scenario. But there's very specific environments when it comes to recruiting. That's all we use is social, right? Our enterprise. So it just depends on what market you're going after.
Interesting. So let's talk about social for recruiting. So, I mean, this is the world that you live in. Is social recruiting, which is a form of social selling, instead of selling a product, you're selling your company, you're selling a job. Is it hype or is it real?
LinkedIn is the de facto standard now. So if you're not on LinkedIn, if you don't have a good LinkedIn profile, you're not going to get found. And I would say it's a portion of social selling or that LinkedIn aspect's a portion of recruiting, a big portion of recruiting. Most HR leaders only require a resume or a CV now simply for legal purposes, that it's documented. But the LinkedIn profile is really just the standard that they go to. So social selling is important, and the referral basis in LinkedIn is the most important, because the best candidates you'll ever get, the best salespeople you ever get, is from a referral.
Let me put you on the spot.
Yeah.
So the 2 metrics for recruiting effectiveness is time to fill and quality of hire. So there's the non-social way of recruiting and the social way of recruiting. So on those two metrics, I mean, if you don't have the numbers, that's fine, say it, but if you do, has social reduced the time to fill and increased the quality of the candidate? Yes, no?
Yes. In fact, the time to fill has dropped by over 15% just in recruiting through social media, because you just reach more people in a faster amount of time. But the quality has improved as well too because of the referrals. So I go into Mark's LinkedIn profile, I search for his connections. I see that he's linked to Tony, and I'm looking for a chief sales officer. I ask Mark for an introduction to Tony. That's an easy way to meet Tony versus me trying to call Tony, cold call him up and sell him something.
If you even know he exists.
Correct.
That's the benefit of social there.
Hey, Greg, just to add to that, back to selling, not necessarily recruiting, I think your firm is a great case study in that, the way that we met was, I tell a lot of our sellers, a case study on social prospecting is SBI. We have a mutual contact you use to make an introduction. I took your call that led to a meeting that led to some business and a relationship. And I think it's a great example.
Yeah, it really is. So just to tell that story a little bit, so we monitor the web for press releases that announce new heads of sales. That's a trigger event for us. A new head of sales gets hired for one of two reasons. Either the sky is falling and the last guy got fired, so the new guy comes in with the mandate to change. And at that time, the things that we do might be valuable to him or her. Or the second reason is they're growing so fast that they outgrew, or the guy or gal that was in the previous job got so rich on stock options that he's retired, and they got to fill. And rapid growth can also stress an organization. So I see his announcement that he joins Rackspace from Microsoft, and I go into his profile, and I'm using an advanced copy of LinkedIn, and we have a mutual friend. I reach out and said, hey, who happened to be a client, Chris Apple. And I said, would you mind giving me a recommendation to Todd? To your point, I earned the right. You know, here we are 2 years later, a happy client, good friends on TV shows, you know, all goodness, all goodness comes from that. So my answer to this specific question is it's not hype, it's real. It's getting more real by the day. I want to come to you, Mark. So I mentioned in the opening, 120 million unique visitors to 90 websites. So if there's anybody on this panel that understands the impact that social is having, broadly speaking today, whether it's selling, marketing, recruiting, it's you. I mean, you're at the forefront of this. So what's your opinion on this?
You know, so from a marketing or product standpoint, it's critically important. Like, we've got to get content out there, get it social, get it viral, and have audience come back to us for sure. I think we're starting to use it a little bit more on the recruiting side, but I think from running a sales organization, I would still probably put it in the hype phase. Like, I'm all in on the hype, by the way. Like, we're going down this path because the next generation of buyers is absolutely going to use this full in to check out people coming in to see them and to, you know, run their businesses. So maybe we're just a little bit early on it, but we're already seeing enough success that we're going full in as a company on it.
Now let me ask you a follow-up to that, and I'm staying on you just because of the position that you're in right now. So there's social, then there's mobile, and then there's social mobile, right? So which is having a bigger impact on the sales profession, social or mobile?
Boy, it's a great question. I would say social is having the biggest impact on ability for sellers to connect and be successful. I mean, mobile's for sure part of everybody's life, and we've got all of our tools lined up on mobile now. We're trying to enable people to be, you know, have at their fingertips everything they need as they're walking in the door, to be able to create proposals on the spot and to be able to get research on the spot and insights. So, I mean, they're both super critical. I mean, it kind of mirrors the media business that we're in. Like, people are consuming media on mobile devices, they're consuming media via social referrals. And it just kind of stands to reason that the sales angle of that would mirror what's going on there.
Tony, you were an early adopter of mobile technology for the sales force.
Yeah.
You gave them mobile tools and et cetera. Tell the audience a little bit about your journey on mobile.
Yeah, so I guess it goes back to also the transaction time in our business. But from the presentation to the boarding, we moved, I believe it was a year ago, to all iPads for all 1,300 sales reps. And you consume learning on mobile. You can get all your tools for presentation on mobile, and you know, everything's held in your hand now. And so social is obviously incredibly important, but those tools right now are almost indispensable, in my opinion, from the mobile perspective.
1,300 sales reps, you give them all iPads, that wasn't cheap. Plus you had to provide all the content, learning content that works well in that environment and all the other things that you've done. So what was the business case?
Well, the business case had a lot to do with the productivity, the recruiting proposition, And obviously, we have a lot more control over pricing. You're talking earlier about discounting antiquated models, in my opinion, on how you can do business. We can set real-time ranges. We can control pricing from behind the scenes really, really quick and give autonomy to the sales rep in the field. And so there's a lot of business cases, and we partner with finance to create that before we made one of the largest investments in iPads that we could have made.
Did it work?
So far, so good.
Yeah.
We're learning a lot, but we're about, I think, 9 months into it right now. And they all went and bought their own iPads, and now we have a little bit more of a platform, a single pane. Everyone can look through the same. From a marketing perspective, everything's now built for one device versus multiple devices. So we're just starting to see a lot of the benefits.
Interesting. John, let me come over to you. You and I have literally argued about this. And we're Generation X, we're not the millennial generation, so we're technologically maybe late to adopt certain things. As it relates to social and its impact on selling, do you think it's hype or do you think it's real?
Well, I think it's real. I think that would be like me betting against the internet that it's going to go away in a couple of years or so. I think there's from the companies that we see, there's varying degrees of adoption. So you're an early adopter. You're coming into it now. Social, I think, is here. It's not going to go away. It's just part of the businesses. We don't have time to meet with sales reps, so there's got to be a social aspect of it for that referral introduction. The mobile capability, I think it's just hitting its stride right now. Some companies are really adopting it when you're heavy transactional and you need to be quicker about your transactions, where others are just getting it rolled out. So it's converted me if I'm on the other side of that argument.
Yeah, if the metaphor is to bet against the internet, that would be the all-time greatest, dumbest move, right? So maybe you don't want to bet against social. All right, well, we have run out of time. On behalf of everyone at SBI and our panel and our viewers, thank you to our panel for coming on our show and answering the questions of our audience and for contributing to our field of sales effectiveness. I wish each of you much success. I would also like to thank you, our viewers, for submitting your questions to us and tuning in. If you enjoyed this show, I suggest you subscribe to SBI TV at salesbenchmarkindex.com/TV, or you can find us at our YouTube channel, which is SBI YouTube. We have some outstanding guests confirmed for future episodes that you will not want to miss. And submit your questions, and I will do my best to put a panel like this together so they can answer them for you. So until then, I wish you the best of luck as you try to make your number.